So Clark Hunt had his first Q&A yesterday with the media in quite some time. The first time he's talked extensively about the future of the Chiefs and Arrowhead Stadium. But before I get to any of that, I could have put this in Tirade Tuesday, but I'm going to keep Tirade Tuesday going for a minute here with my own commentary on a question the media asked Clark Hunt. And it was just, a huge waste of time. A classic sports media question, and it was Clark Hunt being asked whether or not he is appreciating this moment of back-to-back Super Bowls. Let's roll the tape.
Sit back and appreciate what's happening here.
We definitely are, as an organization and as a family, and I think the 50 years between Super Bowls probably laid the foundation for us to have that appreciation.
Do you appreciate what is happening here? What the heck is Clark Hunt going to say to that question? Nah, back-to-back Super Bowls, trying to be the first team to ever three-peat. Nah, nothing to appreciate here, John. Nothing to see here. That is the most ridiculous. You've got 10 minutes with the owner of this team. He's at the podium. And you've got guys wasting our time by saying, do you appreciate, Clark, what's going on right now? As if he's going to say no? If you can answer the question, don't ask it, John. This is like Media 101. I don't know where they find these guys in sports media. It is embarrassing.
He should have said, no, I've been out of town. I just kind of write the checks. I'm not, not up on the day-to-day stuff.
I
think the guy knows what's going on. He's got a responsible at the very bottom, or very top of the line there.
He grew up with the organization for crying out loud. It's not even like he bought it.
It's like the media member. He just the guy before him asked the question he wanted to ask, so then he just kind of, what do I do?
Oh, yeah. That can be a bummer.
Yeah. Well, these guys aren't exactly great at thinking on their feet. But if so, man, I watched the entire press conference last night to get ready for the show today, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Somebody just asked Clark Hunt whether or not he appreciates winning back-to-back Super Bowls. No, I've been in Dallas. I'm not really here a lot, so, it's just another business for me, nothing to see here. It's like, where do you come up with these questions?
Some of us might be reminded of the Chris Farley character on Saturday Night Live where he'd go, hey, remember that time you guys won 2 Super Bowls? That was great.
Oh, that's what it feels like we're living through. Oh, my goodness. That was unbelievable. I'm like, send him back to journalism school, or he can join a lot of media members as far as I'm concerned going back to journalism school, because that right there, if I'm the sports director and that was one of my guys, when he gets back to the building, he comes back to the office, he's going to get a talking to on what a terrible question and a waste of a question that was. You get maybe one question if you're in that media scrum for Clark Hunt. What are you asking? Sir, do you appreciate winning back-to-back Super Bowls? Wow. Now, as for the real content, the real news that came out of yesterday's press conference with Chiefs owner Clark Hunt, we've got a new angle here on the stadiums that we have not really spent a lot of time discussing, and that is the possibility of not just a new stadium in Kansas, but a new stadium in Missouri. Here's what the owner of the Chiefs said when talking about a new stadium in Missouri versus possibly just renovating Arrowhead Stadium itself.
Over the next several months and in coming years, we'll be looking at whether we're better off in a renovated building or in a new stadium. And that new stadium could be on the Missouri side as well. It doesn't have to be on the Kansas side. I had a bunch of season ticket holders come up to me today to share how special Arrowhead is with them. And
yeah, that was Clark Hunt yesterday. And that's something we have not really speculated on or heard anything about. A new stadium on the Missouri side. And over about a 10-minute conversation with the media, Clark Hunt probably referred to a new stadium in Missouri, I would say 4 or 5 times in watching that entire press conference. And once you get somebody, and you can apply it to your life as well, once you get in that mindset of something new and something exciting happening versus, let's say, a renovation. Once your mind is made up, like you were thinking about renovating the house, put on maybe a small addition, maybe redo your kitchen, but then you're like, nah, I want to move. I just want a bigger home, and I want to move. Once you get into that headspace, you're done. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but your mind is made up. And what I heard yesterday, reading between the lines of Clark Hunt's press conference, is that he wants a new stadium. But that doesn't mean they're going to Kansas necessarily. That new stadium, of course, it sounds like now, can be in Missouri. I don't know logistically how that gets done. Because even if they get a full 3/8 cent sales tax, which was previously split between the two teams, even if all that money were to go to the Chiefs, there's not enough money there to build a new stadium, probably $1.5 billion to $2 billion stadium with the way costs have gone up. That money does not exist on a 3/8 cent sales tax in Jackson County. I find it highly unlikely the state will kick anything in. Of course, a lot of it depends on who the next governor is, but I don't see a pathway for the state being involved in any of this. So I don't know how that would work on the Missouri side. But Clark Hunt is not a dumb man. Clark Hunt is not the kind of guy who is going to just say things about new stadiums in Kansas willy-nilly. He's clearly got a vision, and he's had conversations with somebody about it, because if he didn't, he wouldn't float it out there. And it's not coming from Quentin Lucas, because I think he's probably done trusting Quentin Lucas based on how the April vote went. Jim in Blue Springs, go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, let me turn the radio down. Another thing Clark knows about, since he's a pretty smart businessman, is you can talk about the cost of building the stadium and all this, but what they got to be concerned with is the 80, 90 acres of water they got to control that comes off of that. Because the DNR is not going to let that fly. The old Truman Sports Complex has been grandfathered in because it was built before any of those rules are prevalent now. Any development now has to have all total water control coming off site, and they cannot do that without.
There will have to be. Yeah, I didn't think about that, Jim, but that is certainly going to be one of the many questions that will have to be answered in the months ahead. And we are talking months here. So that is something to watch. And suddenly now the Missouri side with a new stadium is part of the conversation, 913-408-7957. He also was asked, would you ever leave the Kansas City area? What did he say to that question? We'll get to it right after the news. No, I don't think the Chiefs are ever going anywhere, but this was asked of Clark Hunt yesterday. As we hit the 9 o'clock hour, Ro Khanna will be here in just over 10 minutes, California Democrat who is on the House Oversight Committee and is calling for the resignation of Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle. So we're looking forward to that coming up. Rescheduled that from earlier this morning. He's just over 10 minutes away. But Clark Hunt asked the question, could you ever see this team playing somewhere other than Kansas City? Here's what the owner said yesterday during his first press conference since the April 2nd vote.
Yeah, well, we have a special connection with the community and with the Chiefs Kingdom, and our focus is very much on finding a solution here in the metropolitan area.
All right. That's the nicest way of him saying no. Now, he's not going to say no because there's no point in him saying no. We're now at the point where it's all business, all right? He is going to leverage this team however he needs to leverage this team to get the best deal he can possibly get out of either side of our state line. And because we have those willing to play the game with the Chiefs and those willing to pit taxpayers against taxpayers, and that's what this is. The government has nothing. Our politicians have nothing other than our money. So because we have willful, ignorant public servants, we are now ending up with a border war for the Kansas City Chiefs. But Clark Hunt is not taking this team out of Kansas City. Anyone trying to use that as a fear-mongering tactic, and you are hearing a lot of that, especially from folks on the Kansas side, who are acting like they are the saviors. We're just here to do our duty and keep the Chiefs in the Kansas City area. We're here to save the day. Clark Hunt has never said or even implied that he would leave the Kansas City area. And yesterday was basically his confirmation of that. Now, if you want to read into it, you can say, well, he didn't say he was definitely staying. Why would he? He would be foolish to come out and say, we would never leave Kansas City under any circumstances. He wants a little leverage. He's playing the game. But Clark Hunt is not going to relocate this team. This is not the St. Louis Rams, right? It's not that situation where they were there for all of a couple of decades. They had another home. They went back to that home. That's not what's going on here. There is no comparison between the Rams and the Chiefs, no matter what people try to tell you. Kansas is insisting it is fixing a problem that does not exist. Kansas politicians have told you, we're just trying to keep the team here. There was literally nothing and nobody who ever suggested they were ever going to leave here or ever considering leaving here. And if you think that statement from Clark Hunt is enough to suggest that they are ever actually going to leave here, well, please, I have great beachfront property in Salina to sell you. It's got your name on it. Give me a call on the studio line. John will pick up, and we'll get connected personally. There is nothing there. There never has been anything there. So what Kansas politicians did is decide they were going to pit taxpayer against taxpayer at the benefit of billionaire sports owners. And by the way, sports teams that we all love. I love. I'm a sports guy. I go to Chiefs games. I love it. Everything about it. I'm not one of these, I don't care about football. I don't like the Chiefs. What does it matter to me? That's not me, man. I love sports. I love this team. But it doesn't mean what our politicians are doing is good business for us. It's not. It might be good for them. In fact, it is good for them. It would be good for them. It might make them look good. It might be good for their political prospects and their egos. But in the end, the government doesn't have anything. The government does not produce anything without our money. And they have failed time and time again to be good stewards of our money. And this is no different. So Clark Hunt, I don't blame him one bit. He's playing the game. The question is, will we have a bunch of ignorant clowns in charge of our state governments who are going to go along with the game? Or are they going to stand up and say, you know, we're happy to have a conversation about you coming to Kansas, but we're not going to put the taxpayer involved. And I know the Star Bond doesn't actually do that. Wink, wink, nod, nod. I get all that. I understand it. But there still are far more questions than answers about the plans on the Kansas side of the state line. That's been true since day one. So now you say, what's the deal on the Missouri side? Well, the problem on the Missouri side is still local elected officials. It's Frank White. It's a county commission that is as clueless as it comes when it comes to local county commissions. They're not serious people for the most part. There's a few of them on there, a couple of them on there, but for the most part, you have people trying to further their own future political ambitions, whether it's through the Chiefs or against the Chiefs. And this is why, by the way, local politics matter. This is why who you elect for county commission, who you elect for county prosecutor plays a role. And that's why coming up on Tuesday, August 6th, it is a big day. And you'll continue to hear from some of the people running for these local offices in the next, 2 weeks from today. So you're going to hear plenty from them over the next couple of weeks because this stuff matters. Who the governor is in Missouri is going to matter for whether or not the Chiefs can end up staying here on the Missouri side of the state line. It will play a role in all of this stuff. When it comes to public safety, when it comes to how your public tax dollars are spent, when it comes to your property taxes, the fiasco that's taken place in Jackson County. Don't forget, that vote that failed back on April 2nd was as much about a blowback from the taxpayer over the property tax fiasco as it was, I believe, anything else. It was right up there with the Royals' plans and the lack of detail in those said plans. 1 and 1A was the Royals' planning along with the property tax fiasco. The plan did not fail for the Chiefs. Had the Chiefs been on the ballot alone for a 3/16 sales tax, half of a 3/8 of a cent, it would have passed with flying colors. But they had these two major issues wrapped around their necks. and that was the Royals and their clunky rollout, and it was the incompetency of county government. And now Clark Hunt is licking his chops because now he's got both of these states pitting against each other, and he can float out the idea that maybe, just maybe, we'll look at other options. But I'm just here to tell you, don't buy it. It's not realistic by any stretch of the imagination. And anybody trying to tell you or sell you on that is doing nothing more than simply playing politics. But it is fair to point out that suddenly a new stadium on the Missouri side is now a big part of the conversation when it wasn't up until Clark Hunt made these comments yesterday. And he was also asked, and I haven't played this yet, Clark Hunt was asked, do you want a renovated Arrowhead? And here's what he had to say on that front.
You were consistent in saying that your preferred outcome was a renovated Arrowhead. Do you still feel that way? Is that your desired outcome?
We're really approaching it with an open mind, and we don't have a desired outcome. We just have to find a solution that works for the community and something that works for the club.
Works for the community and works for the club. Well, the best case for the community, of course, is to, not involve the taxpayer. That's the best case for the community. So, listen, I get it. It's politics. It's business. And I respect Clark Hunt. I have a lot of respect for the Hunt family, what they've done for this town, how they've, stood up for players in controversial situations, i.e. Harrison Butker. So I like Clark Hunt. I like the family. I've met family members, not Clark himself. I have met family members, and there's nothing but respect. But let's be very clear. The best case scenario for the community here is to not involve the taxpayer at all. That's obviously not on the table. So it's not about the taxpayer. It's not really at its core about what's best for the community. Because the best thing for the community is to keep the taxpayer out of it. But no one is talking about that. So it's really about what's best for business and what kind of business deal can be set up. And it's sounding more and more like a potential new stadium at the Truman Sports Complex may be option 1 or option 1A.